for the next presenter, Joan. Daniel has spoken about becoming relevant at the workplace. Right now, I would like to invite Joan to speak about remaining relevant at the workplace. What is it that you need to do? What have we seen? What does research tell us? What are theories telling us? For those of you who have read about the theories, HR practices. So Joan, you're welcome.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. And thank you, Daniel, for setting the groundwork for us. And again, a big thank you to NSSF for giving us this opportunity to engage. I now believe you, Apollo, was it Apollo or David that mentioned that Dennis has 2 master's degrees and a PhD, so he wants me to go into theories. Dennis, I need to put a disclaimer at the start that I'm going to disappoint you because I'm more of a practical, person, so I'm not very sure about the theoretical frameworks. Yes, I did my master's in public health. And if you ask me what I spend my time doing, I spend my time dealing with the health of the mind. Because when people are happy, when they resonate with their purpose, when they resonate with things that are meaningful to them, then yes, we are able to just celebrate that. And I'm going to use a tool. Let me share my screen because I might not be able to clearly articulate things the way Daniel does this for a living. I'm a professional coach and an employment transition coach at that. So that means I spend a lot of my time doing more listening than talking. Never mind that there are opportunities like this one's, Apollo, where I've decided that I'm clearly an essential worker for the season, and I celebrate that. I celebrate the platforms that are giving me that opportunity. Certainly, I'm not part of the 48% active members of NSSF. I'm a voluntary contributor, and so I'm happy about that. But certainly when you're doing your analysis for the last 3 months, probably my variable was missing. And so I can clearly identify with the statistics because I've been on the other side of the poll and I'm on this other side. So I understand the context of employees. I was an employee for over 15 years before I chose to step out in October 2016 to just pursue what I love doing. But like Daniel was sharing, even when I stepped out to begin pursuing what I love, I discovered that I was embarking onto a completely new journey of learning. So when you had the introduction where Dennis was describing me as a certified transformational master coach, those are processes within the coaching profession that we pursue, because I certainly believe that in order for me to add value, I better add value to myself. I didn't want to hold the title of coach when I do not exactly understand what goes in there. So let me just put up my slides for purposes of ensuring that I don't lose anybody along the way. So staying relevant, I think what I'm going to do, the questions that were given to me was, one of them was to just look at why we need to stay relevant and then how to become relevant, but the how piece has been ably articulated by Daniel. So thank you so much. That you must be very clear in terms of, if I'm to do a quick recap, we need to be very clear in terms of what our offering is. And that's why when people are wondering what would happen right now, even in terms of value, the very reason probably your employer is not finding you valuable during this season is that they don't see your relevance as far as the demands for the season are concerned. And there is nothing wrong with you. It's just that your fit is not relevant for the circumstances. I tell people that I've done most of my training via Zoom as far as coaching is concerned. So by the time we went into Zooming, I had been Zoomed up, really understanding how the Zoom operations are. And so we need to understand when we are talking about relevance, what are we talking about in this particular season? And so that is where I'm coming from. That's the background. So how do we transition in this new normal? whatever we have labeled the new normal. I don't know what is normal about it, but the season that we are in, what is this transitioning process all about? And just to let you know that I'm an author of a book, Corporates at a Crossroads, and the theme is very, very focused, knowing that your job isn't eternal and acting on that knowledge. So certainly the fact that our jobs are not eternal, this season has shown us when they decided to divide some workers and call them essential and others non-essential, then the trauma that came without having the caste stickers because people realized they were not essential anymore. Then the question was, what next if I'm a non-essential worker? We had David mention here at the start that they had workers who were saying, yes, I can work from home, but please, I want to get onto that list. The psychology that gets into that. So just to provide a little bit of context, how does transition happen? I always make fun that every time people hear me talk about employment transition, they think I'm talking about bullet number 3. That, you're going to leave formal employment and get into self-employment. And for some others, they're just thinking, okay, fine, it is retirement. Employment transition is everything from the time you start your job to the time you get to retirement. And clearly, we only have 8% who are above 50 years. And because we did not actually check out whether it is people who have hit 55 or 60, I'm not sure whether I'm talking to any people here who are actually retired. But clearly on this platform, majority of our people are within the age bracket, the working age bracket, and this concerns you. So when we are looking at transition, it can happen from one career to another. It could be growth within your entity or growth within you as an individual. It could be leaving formal employment into self-employment, like the path I personally took. It could be planned or forced transition. Okay, it could be planned or forced transition, because sometimes you're forced to transition simply because life has happened and you're going to transition. You can no longer offer the services that you are meant to offer. You're incapacitated, you can't offer those services, or a donor decides to withdraw funding. I know of an organization that we talked to in January last year, and in July, what happened? A major donor withdrew funding and over 100 staff had been, were affected. And yet in January, we had clearly stated it, that it doesn't matter whether you're holding a 5-year appointment letter. It means nothing, because if life happens, life happened. COVID came and nobody knew that at this time, some people would be taking 45% pay cuts. But that has become part of the new normal to say, yes, by the way, there is nothing wrong with taking a pay cut, because you begin realizing, wait a minute, how am I even going to survive without this pay cut? Or age is catching up with you. Okay, so I would like to congratulate the 31% members who are here and you're between the ages of 20 to 30. Because clearly we need this information right at the start of our career journey. Because sometimes when we get the information and we are getting it late, then the planning becomes a little bit traumatic, because you're looking at reality. And it could be forced restructuring, your job has become irrelevant, you're terminated, but right now we are talking about COVID. And my key message for you is that begin looking at changing the kind of tires that you have so that you can stay relevant. For those of you who have listened to me before, there is a tool that I love, that I actually developed myself to help me explain the concepts a little easier, okay? We are in 2020, and what we are looking at when we are helping people to contextualize and understand this transition that they're going to have in life, everything we are really emphasizing is in this box, okay? It's in the box of 2020 to the time when you're going to retire. Of course, as we have this call tonight, you know what age you are at. The way you're going to plan your transition when you're 50 is different from the way the person who is 20, 25 is going to plan. Because you need to understand from this point to this point, what are you going to do? Because this is the only energetic phase that you have. And we do not know how long you're going to live post-retirement. Some people are going to live post the 55, post 60, longer than they have actually worked. And I want you to have that sink in. I'm using this to just set the ground rules in terms of what it is that I'm talking about, in terms of why you actually need to stay relevant. Why do you need to take in the things that Daniel talked about? Okay, when he says that you need to upskill yourself, what makes that important for you, so that you're able to make sense, you're able to stay in your workplace longer, unless you actually feel that you need to step out. I used to work for an international organization, and a lot of what I do today was influenced by the environment in which I worked. There's a lot of growth that I picked from that environment. But I can also guarantee you that it is, you don't just wake up and decide that you're leaving your job. I remember a scenario where because the time I was in that organization long enough, 12 years, and I saw 3 restructuring exercises happening. But I remember one particular one that really stands out for me. We were in a meeting and they came to explain what was going to happen with the changes that were happening in the organization. And one of the ladies in that meeting broke into an outburst, started shedding tears, and the whole meeting was just confused. They were just talking about changes that were going to happen in an organization. And this was somebody who had been in an expatriate position for about 15 years. So in all fairness, the paycheck was way bigger than the ordinary person in the organization, but here they were confused, not knowing what is next. So thank you so much, NSSF, that you bring some of these conversations so that we bring them at the fore and we are able to kind of connect. But why do we need to stay relevant? Why do you want to be relevant at this point? You're constructing a bridge to the future. Okay, you're constructing a bridge to the future. I remember the time I was making my first year out of employment. My former employer, World Vision International, gave me an opportunity to facilitate key activities across the country for the different regions. Now, what if I had burnt that bridge? What happens? You lose out on opportunities, because the reason why you need to stay relevant now, you can imagine if at 25 you're irrelevant, where are you going to get the networks that will help you connect at 35? Just think about that. If you're 50 and above, and you're trying to create networks, you're trying to construct these bridges, people are going to be looking at you a little bit suspiciously. That's why we say, what kind of networks are you growing and how do you want to connect to them? It is an opportunity for your personal growth. There is no way you're going to remain relevant if you decide to sit back and do not grow. I know they explained, they introduced Daniel as a corporate trainer. There are people who only go for training when your employer has actually paid the bill. I'm glad that, I'm not necessarily in that box. I've always thought about my personal investment, invest in things that can grow me, because nobody will ever take away the soft skills. Houses can get burnt, things can happen, all the other things can be taken away, but nobody will take away your brain unless you got a terrible accident that causes your loss of memory and stuff. You need to begin building your brand. The things that Daniel talked about and said, what are you good at? What competencies are you building? Those competencies are going to help you to grow. And as I'm going through this, you realize that this is more of a selfish list. Selfish in the sense that if Apollo decides to make himself relevant and begins constructing his bridges out of NSSF to wherever he would be going, when he uses these opportunities to grow and learn and say, how do you actually coordinate people from different entities and bring them together? He's acquiring those skills. And as he acquires those skills, nobody is going to take away that experience from him. You're enhancing and building your skills, but most important, you're generating social capital. This other side where we are, social capital helps a lot, because these are people who are going to open up their networks to you. I know, Daniel, I heard you talk about BNI. I'm part of Business Network International, but we are very protective in that space. It means that people will, because we farm relationships in that space, so people will only refer you because they now trust in terms of your offering. What is it that you have to offer? Is there real value? Because we don't want to take things at the surface. And you need to discover self. As you remain relevant, it will help you to realize these are things that I love doing. These are things that I don't love doing. I mean, I did public health and I spent a lot of time with all titles that are connected to public health. I did a lot of HIV programming work. I did community health work. I did a lot of communications related to HIV and health. But eventually the yearning within me, now that last bullet on discovering self, that yearning within me was more to say, how can I hold somebody's hand? And when people would ask me, this public health that you're doing, what is it? Then I would say, well, I'm dealing with the health of the mind, because if the mind is okay, I'm keeping disease at bay. Okay? But there is another piece. Clearly, NSSF is a financial institution. Dennis here, who is our moderator, is coming from a banking institution. David, who went for a board meeting, is coming from a financial entity. As we are staying irrelevant, the greatest beneficiary is you as an individual, okay? You have financial obligations to fulfill. I normally tell people that if you decide that you're going to leave your workplace, don't just throw in the towel because you've listened to Daniel giving you a very inspirational piece, and then you say, oops, I'm going to follow Daniel's path. You don't have his experience. You know, you've not been locked up in Padibe, okay? You've not been locked up there. The guy has a thick skin, and probably you are raised in Naguru. You have no clue what it means to be in the bushes. You have no clue what it means to pay school fees for yourself for 6 years. And then you just say, I'm also going out there. If you've not developed that thick skin, you're going to find life miserable. So stay in there so that you're able to even fulfill your financial obligations. You need to provide for your family and dependents. This is not a season to begin throwing tantrums, because yeah, I know people who have been given job cuts and they've not left their jobs, because finance becomes a reality. That's why we say that as you remain relevant in your organization, seek financial literacy. Know how money works. Because if you don't understand the language of money, it will even be worse when you transition. And that transition, remember, will happen at the point of retirement, and you might live for another 30, 40 years. How are you going to live if you've never understood how to manage money? It's very absurd when I look at the statistics of NSSF and knowing that people wipe out their savings within 2 years upon receiving that money. Isn't that bizarre? So we need to be thinking, how do we even equip ourselves? You need to stay relevant so that you can increase your potential for growth. I'm a Christian, I'm a Bible reader, and one of the scriptures I love is in Proverbs that, that talks about, show me a man that is skilled in his labor. They will not serve before obscure people. They will serve before kings. What does that mean? If you're going to serve obscure people, you're going to even fail to bill for your services. Kings don't have time to begin over bargaining. You get into the palace and then they'll say, okay, fine, this person that you've brought in our midst, are they able to offer us that service? So increase your potential for growth. That would mean it becomes a win-win situation. Your employer is benefiting as you grow, but also when you eventually step out, even after retirement, you'll be very relevant in the environment in which you get into. And of course, it is an opportunity for you to earn. And as you're earning, you must be saving and you must be investing. Stop being a courier for money. This is something that I picked from, that I also picked from a recent conversation that we were having, where somebody painted a very clear picture that some of us are couriers when it comes to money. Courier means you're very excited. Apollo manages trillions, so I'm sure he has a comfortable paycheck. But what Apollo might not realize sometimes that he wakes up, he might be driving a BMW, I don't know what car he drives. So he goes to the fueling station and puts fuel in the car. So courier point number one, the petrol station owner has received something. Then, of course, it is cool to go and have a meal at Cafe Javas. So courier point number two, you're releasing money. There's a time I took people through a financial leakage exercise, and somebody actually mentioned that they had spent they consistently saved 50,000 shillings on chewing gum. 50,000, and this is money that they had documented, but it had never occurred to them. And please, why do you need to stay relevant? We don't want you to be in debt when you're finally stepping out. It's very absurd when your job is abruptly comes to an end, and then you have all these other jobs, debts that you need to clear. What are the signs of a relevant worker? So check yourself if you're an employee here. If you're an employer, these are things that will show you that people are still connected. A sign of a relevant worker, you're going to attract more assignments. It doesn't matter that we are in COVID. If you realize that your supervisors don't even have assignments for you, they are not calling you to brainstorm on anything, probably your time is being threatened. Just figure out how you're going to up your game. And you invest in what it takes to remain agile. If you're not going to invest in yourself and remain relevant, the organization will throw you out. Yes, people are thinking, how do we cut back on costs? So how do you ensure that you're not among those ones that are shown the exit? And then be clear about the direction of the organization. So it means that if you begin seeing what the direction that the organization is taking, and let me use the NGO world that I understand best, they're at a point where they're looking for more resources. Are you able to demonstrate that you can actually support that process? Or are you, as my bullet, one of the bullets says, it's not my job, it's not my problem. If that is the attitude, the system is going to throw you out, certainly. So you need to focus on what is important, remain upbeat. You need a bit of energy like Daniel has. For some of us, it doesn't come natural, but just remain upbeat, have the right attitude around.
You're very energetic. I like your energy.
And remain accountable. If there is any message I'm going to leave with you tonight, you're listening to all these other presentations. I normally tell people not everything that you're going to listen to here is relevant to you. But what is that one thing, two things that you're going to take away and say, because of that NSSF engagement, I took away one thing, I took away two things, and they're what I am running away with. So remain relevant, because certainly, like you can see, your employer will simply be a beneficiary for your choosing to remain relevant. If you don't remain relevant, the system will throw you out and you have no better landing. So thank you so much for the opportunity. Over to you, Dennis. I will stop the sharing.
Thank you so much, Joan. Thank you so much, Joan, for your submission. Members, the questions that are still coming through. Okay. Mukisa Emmanuel says, hello, Joan. If I want to access these slides, okay, this one is asking about the slides. From Sandra Rebecca, how do we build a bridge to the future? Okay, that's another question. From Bernard Ogwal, the question you are addressing, to stay relevant, exactly answers why we must stay relevant, and that also resonates with being an essential employee. I think that's just a comment. The other questions, what do you have to say about remaining relevant at work vis-a-vis the high levels of internal politics in many institutions? Maybe Joan, you can start with that.
Thank you so much. And I like the last question. How do you stay relevant in light of internal politics? I'll tell you one of the things, one of the best advice that I got when I was onboarding in World Vision. And when I onboarded in World Vision, I onboarded with World Vision Uganda before I went into the region. As soon as I got in, there are two pieces of advice that I got. One of them was, World Vision is like a big swimming pool. You either sink or float. Then another person came to me and said, you've come to World Vision, it is an international organization, do not be involved in local politics. Now that was very loaded, and I was coming from an environment of media. I mean, I used to work with the New Vision, and the only thing that I knew, get into the office, offer what it is that you're working on, go out and look for stories. So I never had time to sit down and listen to any kind of politics. So now here I come, and that is the advice that I was given. Politics depends on where you position yourself. Are you a facilitator of the internal politics? Are you a facilitator of helping people and supporting them to just have a growth mindset? In my setting, when I was told that, I spent exactly 15 months with World Vision Uganda, and I went into the international arena, and I did not leave that arena until I chose to exit the organization. What does that mean? Going back to where children started us from, have clarity. This clarity should also be about you and the kind of goals that you want. What is important to you? That is what you should be focusing on. If you're going to be involved in becoming the corridor talk politician, You're the one who knows what is happening to everybody in the organization. That is the best package that you have. You remember in the presentation, I said, stay focused to do you understand the direction of your organization? What kind of conversations are you facilitating? Or are you the one who carried your secondary school manners to decide, I'm always the one that is facilitating strikes and that has followed you into the workplace? So you're already somebody who is churning out things that are not going to add up. You're only sabotaging your own growth. The faster you decide that I'm here on objectivity, the better it will run. So decide where you want to fall as far as the politics is concerned. Awesome. The other question that somebody had was, how do we build a bridge to the future? I'm not sure if Daniel and myself managed to capture your attention, because everything that we were talking about is part of your construction. It's part of the construction. But you need to start with the end in mind, okay? Yeah. I will tell you one of the things that motivated me to get into coaching. I always envision myself just hosting people who will tell you, go and talk to the other old woman. By the time you leave, you'll be very empowered. Because I thought there is no end to coaching. It is conversations. Imagine sitting and listening to people's conversations. And let me tell you what happens. It is very unlikely that somebody will come, and I'm going to use my panelists. Okay, some names that I can see. It's very unlikely that somebody like Ruth Christine will come to my office to say, I want to have a conversation with you. And then they will tell me, you know, this is who I am and all the rest. They are likely to come talking about third parties. My organization is terrible. I don't know how I'm supposed to do this and the other. But what the coach will do is to help you step out of that situation and look at it as a third party. So I'm happy that I'm even seeing some names of people that have gone through some of the coaching processes. Because when you're able to look at yourself in a mirror, because most of us do not know what we look like. We only think we know what we look like based on what the mirror has shown us. When you go to a coach, the coach will help you have that. So if you're involved a lot in politics, in that office politics, probably you need a third party to mirror back things to you that will help you capture the things neatly. So over to you, Daniel.
Okay, the next one is for Joan. It's from Elizabeth from Bank of Africa, Mbara. And she's saying, great presentation on staying relevant. How can one strike a balance between mental stability and staying relevant and happy?
Mental stability, we are dealing in a season where we need to stay sober. And that's why I said, for me, one of the things that I like about getting into the coaching space is to help people connect with themselves. What is happiness to you, Elizabeth? What is happiness to you as a listener? What are the things that matter to you? Because if you're going to have mental stability, start with what makes sense to you. You should be able to know that this environment is toxic to me, it is toxic to my health, because you just imagine if you have a family and you just yield to the mental pressure and you get a mental breakdown, the first people that are going to suffer the loss is not your employer. It is you as that individual. So you need to begin asking yourself, what are the things that are relevant to me? Choose your battles. You know, like we normally say, choose your battles. Some of us are, I don't even know the English equation where, Mpalanirako, there's that Mpalanirako version. Apollo, you help me translate that. Some of us get into that and they stretch us and we lose our own happiness. So for me, happiness starts from the point of what is going to make me happy is not the thing that is going to make Daniel happy, is not the thing that is going to make Apollo happy. Start by understanding your why. Why are you existing? Why are you doing the job that you're doing? And begin aligning a lot of the things that you do to that why. For example, I've decided there are things, if they are not contributing to my growth as a coach, I don't spend a lot of energy and time on them, okay? Because if you don't do that, then you're sabotaging yourself. So it is very important to first understand who you are, what are the things that are relevant to you, then you will start on that journey. Because there are things that we do that other people find crazy, but guess what? You get energy, you get energized out of them. So I love platforms like this because they energize me, as opposed to going down and begin scrutinizing the figures and see whether the books are balancing or not. Yet I need to do that also even within a business context.
Thank you so much. The other one is from William Kayongo to Joan. What are those basics on building a brand? Because we've talked about branding in the workplace?
Okay. Let me respond to that question by sharing my personal journey so that you see what things you can pick out of that. And I'm going to keep it very brief, Dennis. When I chose to leave my organization, one of the things that became very apparent, I used to live my life off a suitcase. I would travel from one country into another. And so sometimes you're thinking that, you know, you have connections when there are zero networks that you have. Because what my job did was to take me out of my environment, the Ugandan context, and probably the only seeming networks that I had were in the church context, because those are the people who would see me on a Sunday. Otherwise, I would be at church Sunday morning, and in the evening, I'm off to some country, and by Friday, I'm back. And so that was how the routine was. So when I realized that I actually had no networks, I looked at what opportunities were there for me to begin putting myself out there as a motivational trainer, because that's most of the work that I do is motivational training. So I stepped out and I saw an opportunity on social media. You know, some of us think that social media is just private space. You think you can post anything. Some of us have harnessed that to say, look, this is a brand that I'm creating. So what I started off by understanding, what was I standing for? And in this space, I knew I was stepping into the motivational space. So I was beginning to create a brand. And what was the end game? My end game, even as I talk about the coaching processes, I see myself as an international coach. I want to coach people in all those big entities, but I realized that I need to build my brand towards that. So I went on to social media, and especially Facebook, and decided to be very deliberate in terms of what kind of things am I posting. Everything that I would post would be aligned to my motivational aspects. So that has meant that even as I have grown as an individual, because we've been holding events that people pay for, I also had to make it very deliberate so that people see that while I'm asking them to pay for the events that we are hosting, I'm also paying. So I was sharing my story, but very deliberately showing people the direction we are taking. I remember one of the first training opportunities that I undertook, a very serious one, was the Jack Canfield training. If you read the Success Principles or the Chicken Soup series, that is one of the first trainings that I did. And I remember it increased my followership on Facebook, because now people wanted to associate with this person. They wanted to learn more lessons from that other side. And so now, even with the coaching journey, I've been very deliberate to show people that, hey, I'm calling myself a coach, but I'm investing in myself. So please trust me. So as you're building your brand, start with the end in mind, which is the direction. So when people see me investing in myself, I have a bigger picture in terms of what it is that I'm doing. So it's not enough for me to say I'm a coach. I have a direction. I have a client base that I'm eyeing, but I need to model myself into that space. So what are you standing for? How are you growing that brand? What are the things that you need to know now? And what networks are you building in light of your brand? Chodre mentioned that I'm part of the International Coaching Federation, and I'm actually the founding president for the International Coaching Federation. But one of the things that we did, again, it was finding on the market that we have so many people that, the title coach is a fancy title, but we said, who holds us to any standards? And that's how we went into creating this space. And I'm so happy to mention that in that space, it has exposed me to people that I would probably never have met. You know, people that would take me ages to reach out to them. Now I meet them because they are fellow coaches. And so if I know I need to get into this entity, they're a phone call away. So start with understanding where you're heading to and be deliberate in terms of the steps that you're going to take to grow your brand. It is not enough to just give us talk. Yeah. Chodre has done a lot around, I believe, in terms of building his brand as a salesperson. He's authored a book on sales. So that way he's also building a brand. You don't just wake up and you have a book. It takes time to work on that. So that way, what kind of brand are you doing? And just be deliberate on the journey in terms of what it is that you're taking.
Okay, brilliant insights, Joan.